Good evening, everyone. Welcome. And I have to say, hands down, the best part of these sessions has been the face of our guest teacher as they see everyone else's faces coming in. But welcome to tonight, our final session of Torah for Our Time, this six-part series taught by alumni of BJ's Marshall T. Meyer Fellowship, bringing the wisdom of our tradition to some of the deepest themes of our time. And for those who are our guests, I'm Cantor David Mintz, Director of the Center for Prayer and Spirituality here at BJ, and it is my privilege to welcome back to BJ tonight Rabbi Michelle Dardashti, who was a Rabbinic Fellow at BJ from 2009 to 2011. She currently serves as Associate University Chaplain for the Jewish community at Brown University and Rabbi at Brown Risby Hillel. The daughter of an American folk singer and teacher and an Iranian-born cantor, Rabbi Dardashti was raised on a brand of Judaism that is multicultural, meta-denominational, musical, and global. She was ordained and received an MA in Jewish education from the Jewish Theological Seminary. And at Brown, she nourishes a Judaism that's broad and deep and engaged with the world, and has birthed a number of initiatives that critically explore allyship, anti-Semitism, activism, and the American Jewish relationship with Israel. Among these are the Hill Initiatives for Racial Awareness and Justice, and the Narrow Bridge Project and Fellowship. She's married to Nathan Scher, and together they have 3 children. Eden, who was born while she was at BJ as a fellow, in addition to Mia and Lavi. And it's our privilege to learn from and with her tonight. Rabbi Michelle Dardashti, welcome.
Wow. Oh my, guys, I'm so moved to be here. These faces, I'm like, really, it's so amazing to see you all. I can feel the warmth generating through the screens. I'm almost not prepared. This is so fun. Wow. So I opened tonight, David played for me this music by Yosef Goldman. Those of you who joined after the music started, it was Yosef's song that he wrote to the words of Rabbi Nachman Mibratzlav. The whole world is a very narrow bridge, Va'ikar lo lefached klal, which is usually translated as the whole world is a very narrow bridge, and the most important thing is to not be afraid. Now, these words are powerful tonight for some reasons that are obvious and maybe some that are less obvious. First of all, Rabbi Nachman is from Uman in Ukraine. So his words are particularly poignant in these weeks with the people of Ukraine suffering so much and having so very much to fear. And the truth is that this time of year during Adar, I also think of this verse a lot. Those of you who actually may have studied with me years ago before the Yamim Noraim is actually when I really began thinking a lot about this verse and studying it and playing with it while I was at BJ, I think, in teaching Yamim Noraim and thinking about the ways that our life hangs in the balance. And we need to figure out how to be on that narrow bridge with confidence and with courage. And Adar has something of a similar spirit to that time of heading into the Yamim Noraim. We're actually in the month. There's something similar because in Elul, as we're preparing for the Yamim Noraim, we are in the month before the new year, Rosh Hashanah, before Tishrei. And right now in Adar, we are right before the first month, Nisan, the particularist new year. And so there's some sort of energy that's similar. And so tonight we're going to talk, I sent in we were given this amazing zchut, this amazing merit to teach for you all tonight and to return in this way. And we were asked, what's some piece of Torah for this time? Now, what I'll say is that while I've been at Brown in general, I think that I have been obsessed with looking at the ways that fear as Jews on the right and the left is what's playing out in our polarization, in our differences in the way that we talk about anti-Semitism and we talk about Israel, has to do with different kinds of fears. And tonight, part of what we're doing is we're preparing for Purim and thinking about Purim. And we're going to look a little bit about how this verse, how the narrow bridge is playing out in our lives, playing out in this holiday, and how what we are meant to do when we encounter fear. Now, I have to name, right? I'm starting with Rabbi Nachman being from Ukraine. I have to name that there's fear and there's fear, right? There's fear of what if, and then there's fear of like, I'm living through hell. So tonight, I'm just very cognizant that we're in our cozy. I'm actually sitting in my sister's house. I'm actually in New York because I'm at the Hadar Intensive in part, and it was a conference today in Westchester. So I'm actually in my sister's house in Westchester, and all of you are in cozy places of your own. And so as we're talking about fear here, I want to be really, really clear that there are fears that we feel that are about anxieties, and there are fears that we feel that are much more existential. Whether it's about health or it's about the scariness of the world. Kolivale had we'd sort of taken a breath from that, and what's going on in Ukraine is sort of hitting the world. So domestically, internationally, fear is palpable. I'll say one more thing before we look at one of the texts that I most want to look at. So many of you know also that I had an opportunity to study with Parker Palmer. I had a retreat. I went on a retreat with Parker Palmer. And, a crazy thing happened. I learned with Parker Palmer, and then I got to go on this amazing retreat with the BJ Fellows, with the Marshall T. Meyer Fellows. And I taught what I'd learned about the tragic gap from Parker Palmer at this retreat. And then the rabbi spoke about it and very generously credited me with having given it over. People came up to me at Brown, by the way, and were like, I heard you gave the most amazing sermon at BJ. It was kind of amazing because the rabbis are that generous. But what I'll say to you is that, and I don't know if this is how, I know that like now the tragic gap and Parker Palmer have become serious BJ Torah since that time. That's what I understand. Is that true? Nod your head if you know even what I'm talking about. Parker Palmer, tragic gap to some extent. Well, what I'll say is that I don't think I ever really understood Rabbi Nachman Bretzlav. This verse, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar ma'od, the whole entire world is a very narrow bridge. But the most important thing is not to be afraid. I don't think I actually really understood Rabbi Nachman Bretzlav. I thought I did, but I didn't until I learned Parker Palmer. Because what I came to understand, how I came to understand Rabbi Nachman Bretzlav in light of Parker Palmer, right? Parker Palmer says that there is this tragic gap. What is the tragic gap? The gap is between the world as it is and the world as it ought to be. And it's a very painful place to stand, he says. Yes, it's a place of tension. And we are very tempted to like get away from that very, very fraught, tension-filled place and run to one of two poles. Irrelevant idealism or corrosive cynicism. To say, oh, it's gonna be fine. There's not gonna be a World War III, and also this is gonna be over really soon. Like I'm just talking Ukraine, Russia, but we could do this with anything. We could do this with Israel, Palestine. We could do it with intermarriage. We could, who knows, with Jewish content, who knows, anything. It's like not a thing. Don't think about it. I mean, right, I'm being very extreme, but like the extreme irrelevant idealist would say it's fine, everything's fine. And the corrosive cynic will say it's never going to be okay. We're doomed. Nothing's ever going to go well. And that those are the much more tempting places to go and the place where Parker Palmer says we're supposed to stand. If those of you who don't know, Parker Palmer is a Quaker educator and theologian, and is sort of a Rebbe of mine, and became a Rebbe of Marcello's, I think, as well, and all of ours. He's an educator. He wrote books called The Courage to Teach, Healing the Heart of Democracy, and other amazing books. And what he's saying to us is that we need to stay in the gap. As tempted as we are to run to the poles that are much less stressful, like irrelevant idealism, corrosive cynicism, it's like you can cast off the burden and just be. And that standing in this gap is very painful and very hard. But what he says is that place of the heavy is where the heavy lifting is done. It is the place we must be. So what I think is that what Rabbi Nachman Bretzlav is saying about the bridge is the same thing Parker Palmer is saying about the gap. The entire world is a very narrow bridge. The world is scary. It feels like you're a big, massive truck sometimes trying to make your way, and it's terrifying that you're on this narrow bridge. But actually, what we need to figure out how to do is not let, lo lefached klal means not to let the fear destroy us. Klal, which we translate often as never be afraid. I don't think Rabbi Nachman could have really been saying to us, just don't be afraid. Sounds a little too irrelevant idealist, actually, in a way. Just don't be afraid. He's saying, don't let your fear finish you, destroy you, push you off the bridge, cause you to leave the place of action and heavy lifting, that tension-fraught place that Parker calls the tragic gap, and that place where we need to be to do the work in the world. Okay, so here we are. I open very heavy, but we're in Adar, guys. We're in Adar. It's the 6th of Adar tonight. I think today was the 5th. We're in Adar, and Adar, the most famous saying about Adar, right, is, somebody just tell me, take yourself off mute. Who's going to do it? The most famous saying we know about the month of Adar. Anyone?
Happy.
Yes. Oh, I loved it. The cacophony made it even more joyous. Yeah. That from the time that Adar begins, our joy is supposed to increase. And again, I think it's not just that our joy just increases, just like, don't be afraid, just be happy, right? I think there's work, just like with Rabbi Nachman Bretzlav, that he's saying, don't let your fear destroy you. In Adar, it's saying cultivate joy. And I believe, actually, that they're connected. I believe there's something about Adar that's scary, that's heavy, that is the reason that we are hit over the head with, okay, it's going to be a month of revelry and joy. Let's do it. Bring the joy, bring the joy. And I want to look tonight at what that is. So what I want us to do right now is I'm going to share my screen. David, do I have capacity to share the screen? I think I do, yeah?
Yes, you do.
Mitsuyan. So amazing. Tough. So I'm going to share my screen, and you're going to see a text by a different Hasidic teacher. It's from a book called The Kol Mevaser. And what I want us to do is read this text, and I'm wondering, I just want to name that it's very hard for me to be learning with all of you this way on Zoom, and I wish I could see every one of you and hear every one of you. So if you're someplace quiet enough and you want to take yourself off mute, just so I hear your laughing, your question, your sighs, feel free. Is there anybody who wants to read this text? Just write me in the chat, maybe, if you do. Wants to read this text for us? Any lovely person? Morty Miller. Wonderful. Please.
Oops, I just lost the screen. There we go. There
Morty,
we go.
I'm so happy you knew about this. Morty actually lives in Providence. That's so lovely to see you here. Yay.
Wonderful to be here at BJ.
Fun. Go ahead.
Rabbi Bunem comments on the statement of the Zohar that Yom HaKippurim is like Yom Purim, Hayom Purim. He says it means that Yom HaKippurim depends on Purim. And if so, Purim is superior to Yom HaKippurim. How
Okay,
so?
so wait. So before you even read us how so, let me make sure this is making some sense, okay? So Rabbi Bunem comments on the statement of Zohar that Zohar says that Yom HaKippurim is like Purim. Where are they getting that from? They're saying it's ke Purim, like Purim. Does that make sense? Ke Purim means like Purim. So they're saying, okay, well, if the Zohar is saying that it's ke Purim, like Purim, then what it must be saying is that Yom HaKippurim depends on Purim, right? If you say you look like your mother, then your mother is the Ikar. Your mother is the one that your looks depend on. It's not the other way around. Does everyone get what I'm saying? Yes? Because Yom Kippur in Hebrew is Yom HaKippurim, and they're picking up on the fact that Kippurim has the word Purim in it. Yes? Nod your heads if that's making sense. Mitsuyan. Okay, Morty. So continue, please. So therefore, okay,
How
great.
so?
Great.
Rabbi Bunem says that on Yom Kippur, we afflict our bodies, while on Purim, we afflict our consciousness. For the sages teach in the Talmud, Megillah 7b, that a person is obligated to drink on Purim to the point of being unable to distinguish between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. And the affliction of the consciousness is more of a challenge than the affliction of the body. And for this reason, Yom HaKippurim depends on Purim.
Okay. Does anybody want to, I think that you probably need to chew on this text a little more to really make heads or tails of it. Does anybody want to ask any clarifying questions of it? Because what I'm going to actually do, I'm actually going to send you into Chavruta, and you're going to be able to look at this text really briefly with somebody there. And what I want you to consider is, what are they saying are the connections between Purim and Yom Kippurim, and what is this affliction of consciousness that they're talking about? Do you buy it? Does it land? Is this making sense to you? I want you to read it one more time in Chavruta and chat about that. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any clarifying questions? Let's see if I can actually stop share. Amazing. Perfect. Okay, Dave Mintz just put, thank you so much, Rabbi Mintz, just put a link in the chat that links you to this text. Should be accessible to all, and he's going to break you into breakout rooms just very briefly. Don't want to lose anyone. Don't get lost. Meet your chavruta. If you've never done breakout rooms on Zoom, what you'll find is that there's like an unexpected intimacy. Oh, Joni, you have a question. Hi there, Joni. Oh, wait, hold on. You're on mute.
Michelle, I want to get an apartment in Providence. Oh my God. Misty, and buy some art with you. And
oh my gosh, I would love it. I would love it. Well, maybe I'll be in New York again sometime soon. So maybe we can figure out a visit.
We'll figure. Maybe in the chavruta, I'll ask my question because we're about to do breakout rooms.
We're about to do breakouts, but I love that I just got to say hi to you, Joni. So like, really, I'm here for the schmooze too. There's learning, there's reconnection. It's like, just a lot of love and learning both. I think they're both important tonight. So, oh my. So go. You're going to be surprised by the intimacy you can achieve in breakout rooms on Zoom because, you don't get the cacophony and like the rah, rah, that you're getting from all the other chavrutot that you do when in person in the Beit Midrash, but there's some like amazing experience of like, it's just you and me. There's no one else in the room. So read the text and just talk about this question of like, what's going on? Yom Kippur, Purim, affliction of consciousness. Tov, good. I'll see you in like 5 minutes-ish. How was that for everyone? Oh, people are still joining. Great. So who met someone new tonight? Fun. So fun. Look at this. So tell me, my friends, what you got? And this is the most fun part because now I'm going to stop talking for a little while. So just like jump in. We're not such a large group. This is a pretty small, relatively small-ish Zoom. So
I was honored to learn with Joyce Gottlieb, who we have to send our prayers to for good healing. And we were talking about this loss of consciousness, this affliction of consciousness. That's the phrase that we were really working on. And I felt that in Yom Kippur and in Purim, it's through the body that we are asked to develop consciousness. And Joyce made a wonderful observation that we gain consciousness on Yom Kippur. We strive for awareness. We strive for tshuva. While on Purim, there's an absence of discernment, who is up and who is down. Thank you.
Beautiful.
If I could jump in, this
is that Shelley? Yeah, Shelley.
How you doing? We had an interesting discussion, myself and Sarah Levin, about this, and it's what we concluded was that if you look at for example, at Zohar is concerned a lot with the lower world, with demons, and it really is kind of, that's a lot in Zohar. They see a lot of the lower world, the evil, so we were comparing Yom Kippur, where you come into Yom Kippur, you're wearing the katan, you're really wearing a shroud. I mean, it starts off with this very, very serious, you're almost at death's door, theoretically. You're wearing a shroud, and then it comes in, as time goes on, of course, after you're fasting and you're afflicting yourself, if you will, you then come out, we go to this joyous end. Whereas in Purim, you're drinking yourself into the other world, if you will. It's sort of like a reverse. And that's where I think maybe they see the connection. Having all this booze in you puts you into the lower world. And the reverse of Yom Kippur takes you to starting off in the lower world, wearing the shroud, into the consciousness of the world.
Claiming life, actually.
Claiming life, exactly.
Yeah, right. We're saying we're rehearsing our death so that we can step into life more boldly and claim it. And
Right.
what we're saying is that on Purim, we're like living large in this way that's very physical, but in a way that's sort of, what's the word? Flirting with death, right? That we're getting so drunk. Very interesting, beautiful. Miod, who's next? Brandon.
Hi.
Hi.
So I think an interesting thing was that the affliction of the consciousness is more of a challenge than the affliction of the body. And maybe that's because while you're afflicting the body and maybe it's painful and challenging, at least understand what's going on. You understand why you're doing it. But if your consciousness is afflicted, you really don't, maybe not, can't understand anything.
It's like one of them you're controlling and the other is like you're giving up control, right? You're very intentionally not eating is sort of what I hear you saying. And then on Yom Kippur, I mean, on Purim, it's like you're giving yourself over to like lack of control. Powerful. Yeah. Did you want to say one more thing about that? Or that's just that was the reflection?
Well, I think it also emphasizes the importance of the consciousness, because if you're conscious, you can overcome maybe anything, but at least you can overcome these afflictions you're putting yourself through. But if you've lost your consciousness, you're literally lost.
Amazing. So I want to come back to that, this idea of like, now we're moving into which one's harder in a way, right? Like on some level, we're talking about the distinctions. And so what do they mean when they say it depends on, it's, you know, is it about one is more important? Is it about one is harder? I think we're moving into almost questions of that. It sounds like what you're saying, Brandon, is that they're just saying that Purim is harder. It's harder because you're not in control.
Right, right.
Amazing. Okay, amazing. I see Natasha and I see Judith and I saw somebody else had their hand raised. I'll look in a second. I don't know who's first, but Judith, go ahead. So
hello. And I had a wonderful conversation with Judy and Glenn. We never get to talk, but we see each other on Zoom every morning practically. And I think it's so good to see you. We picked up on a number of the themes that have been talked about so far. And what stood out for me is the need for humans to have both extremes, to be able or to really find it necessary to sit there on Yom Kippur and really be very conscious, and then take Purim and just forget about the consciousness completely. And what is it about us that needs the two extremes? And I guess, how do we find a balance in both? Because we often play one against the other and don't look for balance. And maybe there's something about these two holidays that we have to look at that balance.
Beautiful. Love that, Judith. Thank you so much. Natasha and then Nancy. And if there's somebody else I'm missing, put your name in the chat so I see you.
Yeah, I think I wanted to talk about that point about being more difficult, because I think that's something that Nancy and I talked about in depth. I think what was cool for us, honestly, was to be able to experience this text as an intergenerational chavruta pair, and to come to see what this means to different people in different phases in their life. It's not so long ago that like I was like doing shots in the Hillel with the Rabbi Dardashti.
I don't do shots
by myself, alone. But like, what does it mean to be more difficult? How could Purim be more difficult than fasting? And one thing that Nancy brought to bear, and I hope she's comfortable with me sharing, is, when she looks at this text, she thinks about friends who at, towards end of life are experiencing either loss of consciousness or loss of mobility, and which is more difficult. And one thing that we got to was that I, as someone who's on my journey starting of Torah, think about the individual, which is more tricky for the individual to have to fast or to have to afflict their consciousness. Whereas I think Nancy was coming about it in a more communal focused way, the external, what impact you have on people when you are losing your consciousness versus when you are losing control of your body. And honestly, in some ways, losing control of your consciousness can be much more difficult on the people around you than losing control of your body. And when I was kind of thinking about this a lot as well, I've talked a lot about which is harder, but I was curious about this idea of one being superior to the other, because I'm a millennial and that's all we do. And that was the thing I wasn't sure that I bought, like why is one being like the other superior versus, and vice versa. And I do have to wonder, as we come back to these types of texts every year and we approach them at different phases of our lives, as our understanding grows and changes, if that comes to explain to us why one is more superior than others, then in some ways, is it not that you go from a point of thinking about what is more difficult for you as an individual to growing as a person and finding that it might be what's more difficult for the people around you, the impact that you have on the olam around you, that makes it superior.
Beautiful. Thanks for all of that, Natasha. And then Nancy Grunbaum was your chavruta?
Yes, with love and joy.
Nancy, tell us. And then I see you, Joan.
Hi, Natasha. Yes, you did an exquisite summary of our chavruta, and for me, I have studied this text before, but in reading it, when we started to talk, I was focused on and zeroed in on the affliction, the sentence, the affliction of the consciousness is more of a challenge than the affliction of the body. And that for me resonated as a caretaker, because I am surrounded at my stage of life by so many friends and people who are early Alzheimer's, who are dying of different physical diseases. And I have had often wondered when I was younger, which would be worse, to lose my mental faculties or physical being. And it's something I haven't resolved, even though I am in some ways more enveloped by it. And that's what this teaching is to me in this year.
Thank you for that. It's grounding and it's powerful, and none of us should have to really make that call. And please God, please God, none of us should have to. It's scary and it's hard.
It is.
Joan.
Sure. Thank you, Rabbi Michelle. It's good to see you.
So great to see you.
Thanks. I was lucky enough to learn with Gail Ressler, and on a personal note, I put this into the chat. My father died on Shushan Purim 4 years ago, and this exact teaching is what Marcelo spoke about at my dad's funeral. So it has tremendous meaning to me right now. In addition to that, it was awesome. That was awesome. So thank you. It's really, hiya, Daddy. And thank you, Marcelo. But what Gail and I spoke about was when we afflict our souls on Yom Kippur, we're really making a choice, right? Let's face it, we're making a choice, not to do all the things that we're told not to do, and that's one very important thing. And on Purim, if you really dig into the story, if you really look at the story, there's who am I? What's my power? What can I affect? What can I change? What can I do? Right? It's really the story of if you really take a good deep look at Esther and Mordechai, Mordechai really truly challenges Esther. If you don't do this, someone else will, and you're not going to be saved. So there's really quite a bit, we spoke about quite a bit of really taking a look at, your consciousness of who are you, what do you do, what do you bring to this world, and what are you, what's your power to change things. So that was a lot of what we spoke about.
Amazing. So that's where we're going to go. Does somebody else want to comment? I can't tell if somebody else, I see 3 raised hands, but I think I got them all. Nachon? Oh no, Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Wait, hi. Oh, it is so great. So I was lucky enough to learn with Shira. And again, like somebody else said, we've seen each other in a zillion little boxes, but never had a direct conversation. So it was wonderful. But one of the things, and I'm not sure if I'm just saying this because I said it, but to me, when the text said that the affliction of the consciousness is, I don't know what the term was, more important or more whatever, it made immediate sense to me, because your consciousness, your mind, what goes on in your mind is so much more powerful to me than what happens in your body. And in fact, what goes on in your mind controls what happens in your body. And and we see it, like everybody said, on Yom Kippur, because we make a conscious choice to be in shul all day, to not eat, to afflict our bodies in that way. And it's a conscious choice we made. So, some people make a conscious choice to lose their consciousness on Yom Kippur, but on Purim, but it's still your conscious mind making that choice. And I really honestly believe that the mind, the consciousness, is more powerful. So that it hit me. I didn't even question what it said.
Beautiful. Similar to what Brandon said, actually, right? That Purim, what they're asking of us is just harder. Now, Joan made this comment about the ways that the Megillah asks us to look at these questions. Now, you have on your dapim the text that I can share my screen and show you, or I can just, you have it, the text from Esther 4. Does somebody want to read it? I could share a screen, or you could look at it. Anybody want to volunteer to read it from Esther 4, Megillat Esther, chapter 13? Do you guys see where I am in the document? Oh, me? No, you don't. You. Okay. Well, Shira, do you want to read it? I'll pull it up. I'll share a screen, but you can also read it from your own screen. Either way.
Okay, thanks.
Amazing. Here, I'll just share the screen. This is great. Don't worry about finding it. It's all good.
Okay. I found it if you want. I'd say.
Either way, but go ahead and read to us.
Okay. Mordecai had this message delivered to Esther. Do not imagine that you, of all the Jews, will escape with your life by being in the king's palace. On the contrary, if you keep silent in this crisis, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have come to be royalty for just such a time as this. Then Esther sent back the answer to Mordecai. Go, assemble all the Jews who live in Shushan and fast on my behalf. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. And I, my maidens, will observe the same fast. Then I shall go to the king, though it is contrary to the law, and if I perish, I perish.
Amazing. So, yeah, Dr. Share. This is the text that Joan is alluding to. I want to just make sure we've all seen it, right? This is this very famous verse that we hear about a lot, right? Who knows if it's what I bolded? Who knows? Who knows if it's for just this time as this that you came to be royalty? You'd think, right, that when Mordecai is coming to give her a message, it would be something a little more than like, who knows, right? But I can promise her. He says here is, who knows? Now, I want to go back for a second to this question that Natasha asked, and then we're going to look at this text more. Ooh, one second. Tov. So Natasha asked this question of, is it really superior? What does it mean that it's, is it really superior? So I don't know that the Hasidic text actually says superior. I think it says talui ba, depends on. Pretty sure that those are the words. I don't actually have a copy of it in front of me. I have it only on the screen. I'm going to be looking at it while I'm looking at you. It does say talui?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at the text.
Good. I'm looking at I'm trying to find the text. But it does talui, right? Depends.
No, but it says imken porim gadol yoter miyom hakippurim.
It says both of them. Okay, so then greater. Now, gadol can mean a superior, or it can mean like gadol v'nora, like it's like a bigger deal, right? Kind of like we're hearing from who said it? I think Wendy and Brandon, right? That it's harder. Okay, so in what way? Here's the thing about Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, first of all, a lot of people have said, as a lot of people have said in Yom Kippur, we are in control. We are deciding to consciously, right, there's that word, go in there and do inui haguf, do afflict our bodies, to have what kind of experience? An experience of kapara, an experience of atonement, an experience where we are reliving what happened in the Beit HaMikdash with the Kohen Gadol. Right, on Yom Kippur, let's remember, we are trying to reenact this experience that we no longer have access to, whereby the Kohen Gadol goes into the Beit HaMikdash on the 6th day of the year and confesses his sins and his family's sins and the people's sins, and emerges, and by magic somehow. I mean, right, not magic, like we're working hard, we're beating our chests, we're fasting, we're doing the stuff, and hopefully we're listening to Isaiah and we're contemplating how we have to be good people too and help the oppressed, because we know that that's a trap of Yom Kippur, that we can just be like, I'm doing the thing, and the priest is gonna come out and it's gonna be like, I'm good. But that Yom Kippur experience, it's like, if I just do the thing, I know that at Neilah, I'm gonna get to dance and eat bagels. Purim? Not so much. And so for sure, again, now maybe what you're saying, Natasha, is, but you're still pointing to how it's harder. Why is it dependent on it? What is it about Purim that we need to experience annually? Because actually, if you think about it, right, it's like it's leading us into the first month. And it's halfway, right, to Tishrei, right? When we get to Nisan, we're halfway to Tishrei. Right? What is it that we need right here in this time of year to keep us honest? I think the reason it says depends. I mean, I don't know, does somebody else want to venture a guess? Did anybody else have an answer to that? I should have asked that first. It's just so hard when your screen's like squares on a screen. Does somebody else have an answer to Natasha's question? Did it come up in your chavruta? Why is it gadol yoter? Why is it talui? Why is it dependent on, and why is it greater than? Anyone else want to venture a guess?
We did speak about how, like I said, everything that you do on Yom Kippur is actually something that's really like a choice that's under your control.
Right.
Whereas everything that we're thinking about and speaking about right now with Purim is something, you know, it's more thought provoking. It's more thought.
Yes, and it's even more out of our hands. You see, on Yom Kippur, we at least have a way that we think we are in relationship with God, and then God is going to, there's going to be kapara. And the relationship is there. On Purim, God is hidden. Esther's name is from the Hastir. Where is Esther mentioned in the Torah? I will surely hide my face. God will mastir et panav. God is hidden in the Megillah. And in the Megillah, we simply must do the work of figuring out, are we good? No one's going to come out. The Kohen Gadol is not going to come out and go, oh, Mishana, Haba, like we did it, you know, like it doesn't happen on Purim. And lahavdil, actually, lahefech, I would say, the opposite happens. On Purim, what do we read? What happens in the Megillah, my friends? Gail, I hear you saying something.
Victory, sort of this sense of having won as the underdog, and
okay, great. There's a sense of having won as the underdog. We feel like we're the heroes, nachon? We feel like Mordechai, we wave our flags and we do boo for Haman. And it's like, but really guys, what happens in the Megillah? Later in the Megillah.
Yeah, lots of people die.
Yeah. We don't just save our own butts. We go on a killing rampage. The Megillah has a dark side, and so does Purim. And what Purim is saying is, so do each of us. I want to look at one more text and we're going to come back. Actually, I don't know if I have to look at it. I'm going to tell you about it. So I have it if you want to see it, but essentially there's the text before Yaakov. I didn't put it on your sheets, but I have it here. The text before Yaakov famously wrestles with the angel is a fabulous text. For me, it's a bedrock text for how we encounter fear. Actually, I'll share it for 1 second just so you see it. Right? It says, Jacob was greatly frightened and distressed. Vayira Yaakov ma'od vayetzer lo. And Rashi wants to understand, and really it's based on Genesis Rabbah. Bereshit Rabbah actually wants to understand, and Rashi brings it. Why does it say vayira and vayetzer? Why does it say frightened and distressed? He was afraid he might be killed, and he was distressed that he might have to kill. What is happening with Jacob and what happens to us on Purim is that we become aware that it's not clear whether we're going to have, whether we're the victim or the perpetrator. On Purim, we're both. Jacob is wrestling. Then he goes on and wrestles, literally wrestles. How do we become Yisrael? We get our name then, right then, by meeting fear and wrestling with a truth that we're not sure. He is afraid and he is distressed. He is afraid and he is distressed because he's not sure whether he is the victim, whether he is the perpetrator. And he's also, I think, by the way, not sure about that in general with his story. He has a pretty complicated past. My kid actually in 4th grade, they had a whole debate, Esau versus Jacob. Like, did he steal the birthright? Was he kosher? What did Jacob do? Team Jacob won, but I think it's like, the deck is stacked against Esau. Like, I don't even think the kids notice, but they're like, yeah, no, it's okay. Jacob's fine. I don't know. My point being, it's morally ambiguous. And I think what Jacob is doing that night when he wrestles all night with the angel, and we get our name for it, is that he's wrestling with the reality that he doesn't know if there can be kapara. He doesn't know if there can be atonement in his relationship with his brother. We as Jews, when we are afraid, we wrestle. That's what it means to stay on the bridge and to stay in the gap. That's what our inheritance is anyway. Not simple. I'm not saying we all do it, that none of us ever run into relevant idealism or corrosive cynicism or jump off the bridge. We do. But our inheritance as Yisrael is very much about our response to fear. Because make no mistake, right? Our defensiveness of any sort, whether it's in interpersonal relationships, how we respond, our judgmentalism, and then of course, how we experience anti-Semitism, all of these things have to do with deep-seated fears. The question is, can we continue to wrestle with the things that we're afraid of? And Purim, I think, is greater, Natasha, because it actually is the ring. It brings us into the ring to wrestle. Yom Kippur sets us up for success. Purim is much more like our world, a world where who knows? A world of miodea, of who knows what our power is for good or our power is for evil. Joan, you asked this question who asked the question? I think Joni, right? Didn't you ask a question about coffee? I think it was you, right? Like I think that the point of the drinking on Purim is not really about drinking. You don't have to be a drinker. The idea is that you are being pushed to be in a state of looking the reality of not knowing whether you're the villain or the hero of the story in the face. That's what Purim is doing to you. So they say, drink to the point that you don't know, because that is the work of Purim. Now, we're gonna look at one more text because we're actually, today's the 6th of Adar. That means that this time, Purim is next week. Now, what happens the Shabbat before Purim? We have a parasha, we have a special Shabbat that's called Shabbat Zachor, and it's named after a special maftir reading, a maftir reading that comes from Deuteronomy, but talks about Zecher Amalek. Great. So Judith is asking, are we both the villain and the hero? I think that is the idea that we have in us. I'm looking for your little square, Judith. Where are you? Oh, there you are. We have in us the capacity to be both. That's exactly the point. And we must wrestle. We must wrestle. We must know that, yes, you should be afraid. Like it's real. You're on a very narrow bridge. Like you really are. It's scary. You might be the villain. And we need to wrestle and stay in that place of like doing the hard work to do the right thing each day, each moment, each relationship. There's no like ultimate kapara. Each day is its own test of our ability to like stay in the game and do our best. And by the way, each day is another day for tshuva too. It's not like your fate is not sealed on your one actions, but each day is a choice and each day is hard and each day we're not exactly sure. And we shouldn't ever be so sure. So on that note, hold on. I'm going to share with you the text that we read this week for Shabbat Zachor. Great. So, does anybody want to read this text? Who do I see here? Great.
Judy.
Oh, Judy. Been waiting to hear your voice all night. Go, please.
This was my brother's bar mitzvah portion. He just sang it for us, actually. Okay, here we go. Remember what Amalek did to you on your journey after you left Egypt. How, undeterred by fear of God, he surprised you on the march when you were famished and weary and cut down all the stragglers in your rear. Therefore, when Adonai your God grants you safety from all your enemies around you, in the land that Adonai your God is giving you as a hereditary portion, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget.
Okay, now I feel bad to just close this. I can see your faces because I moved it for me. So you can look at it or you can just decide to like view full screen and ignore the text if you want to be able to see faces. But I want to let you just be looking at it and chewing on it for another second. Okay, what up with this text, really? Like, we're reading this text, this Shabbat before Purim. Give me the pshat and then let's drash it. What's the pshat of why we read this text about Amalek, the Shabbat before Purim, Shabbat Zachor? It's called Shabbat Zachor, right? Just to be clear, because it starts with this word, Zachor, Zachor, et asher asa lecha Amalek b'derech b'tzidchem Mitzrayim. Okay, remember what Amalek did to you on your way out of Egypt. So that's why it's called that. Why do we read the text about Amalek? The pshat, what's the simple reason?
Amalek is the symbol of all villainy who tried to get rid of us.
Okay, great. So Amalek symbolizes our perennial enemy. And even more than that, who is Amalek's descendant?
Haman.
Plural descendant in our tradition?
Haman.
Haman.
Yes. Boo! Okay, I thought you were just going to just all yell boo. Yes, Haman, right? Haman is called Agigi, named after the Melech, the Amalekite king. So Okay, great. So wait, hold on a second. You guys have looked at the text sufficiently? I want to be able to make sure you guys can see each other. Tov. Okay, so what's going on here with Amalek? Anyone want to venture a pshat? I mean, the drash on why we read this text, and what does it have to do with everything else we've been talking about? Anyone? I'll give us a second. We don't have to, but does anyone have something that they want to ask or say about this text?
I was wondering what the difference or the meaning of having the statement blot out the memory of Amalek, but on the other hand, do not forget.
Amazing. Amazing. It's called Shabbat Zachor, Shabbat of memory. And yet it's all about blotting out memory and not forgetting that we're going to blot out the memory. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of negatives. Okay, great question. So what are we trying to remember and what are we trying to forget? So Amalek, since we're looking at all the Hasidic teachings tonight, right? Amalek, the Hasidic reading of Amalek is according to the Gematria. They noticed that the word Amalek and the word has the same Gematria, the same numerological value as, do you know? Do you know what it is? It's actually,
I'm not sure.
It's okay, no, it's safek. It's doubt. Now you're like, okay, well now she's really confusing me. Isn't doubt like a important liberal value? Like I just said that you need to doubt because you need to know that you don't know and like what's going on. Okay. So my chap on Amalek and what's going on here is this. The kind of doubt that Amalek represents is the kind of doubt that pulls you off the bridge, that pulls you out of the gap. It's the kind of doubt that makes you say, I can't do it. Like Esther, like, are you kidding? I'm going to go into the king. I can't do that. I can't do it. It's the like defeating, it's the kind of doubt that's corrosive and that totally wipes out your capacity to believe in your power. Because here's the thing about Purim that is true. Esther acted heroically. She may have also acted like a villain, right? She may have also, or allowed a slaughter to happen, who knows? But she was afraid. And she had reason to be afraid, but she said, if I perish, I perish. She didn't let her doubt. She didn't let the fact that she did not know. The point is, we live in a world where we do not know. And if we let that not knowing overwhelm us, we're through. We'll be off the bridge, out of the gap, and it'll be truly tragic. What if we are remembering? What are we remembering, Shabbat Zachor? That we must not allow ourselves to doubt our own power. Even amidst all the not knowing in the world that is real, we cannot doubt that we have agency. We must remember that we have tremendous power nonetheless. Now, I saw that Jay Brodsky had a question. I also know that I'm supposed to end by 8:15. Jay, did you want to ask a quick question?
No, I'll reserve it.
You can email me about it.
Yeah.
But if anybody has a thing, like, I don't want you to feel like you have to hold it. I know we have to close. But if
I want to say on behalf of every face that is in this group, including the unknowns that maybe couldn't happen, that you receive, that you have the capacity to receive the love and strength should you ever be in any kind of a weird place, that you remember these little boxes, that there was some time in March and this guy Dave and, and Wendy was there and Judy was there and, and Bernie's wearing his hat, and that there are unseen forces that love you and support you.
Oh, Joni, you're beautiful. And the bracha that I want to give to each of us, truly. First, one word of logistics, just to say, wait, that if you want to see me again, you want to hear me talk about this book that I produced with students called Love Thy Neighbor. And it's all about the Narrow Bridge Project. You can read about it in the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, Google Brown University, JTA, Narrow Bridge. You'll see, you can read about it if you missed it. But I'm actually speaking about it at the JCC. So Joni, I will be back on the Upper West Side, your JCC on the Upper West Side on the 25th of April, in Yirtzeh Hashem, please God. So if you want to hear more about the way that thinking about Jacob's wrestling has made its way into my work with students, come join me there. It'll be really fun to see you in person. And the bracha that I want to give to all of you is really the bracha that Joni mentioned. I take great joy. And Joan, by the way, my grandfather also passed away on Shushan Purim. So we share something. And it was his passing away that actually led me to rabbinical school. I was living in Israel at the time. And I came back
law school
for Shiva. Exactly. And I didn't go to law school.
I remember.
And I instead went to rabbinical school. Oh, Harriet, look at these people who knew me as I was a baby rabbi. So, what I want to say to you is that that represents the possibility, right, v'nafachu, for things to turn on their heads. L'tov or l'ra, right? L'tova or l'ra. It could be good, it could be bad. And if it's ever bad, as Joni said, remember these people who are in your corner. Remember these people that you can reach out to. The way that Esther had her people, she said, she didn't do it alone is the truth. She said, fast for me. Pray that I will be okay, right? We fast Ta'anit Esther because she had courage. So I bless us all that we may have the courage to stand on the bridge, to stay on the bridge, to stay in the gap when it's hard, to remember. Shabbat Zachor is about remembering that we have power, that we have agency even amidst so much unknown. The doubts cannot overwhelm us. The fears cannot destroy us. And I bless us and I pray that truly this Adar will be l'tova for all of us, that we will have unexpected, exciting new chapters, new relationships, new naches in our lives. And as the Megillah says, and as we say in Havdalah every week, La'Yehudim hayta ora v'sason v'simcha v'ikar kenti lanu. The Jews in that time had joy and gladness and honor. So may it be for us. I wish you all such a beautiful evening. Please, I hope to get to see you again soon.
Thanks so much for being here.
Oh my goodness. So much love. Thank you. And thank you to
Michelle,
BJ.
thank you.
Thank you so much,
David,
Michelle.
where are you? David, thank you for this entire series has been just fantastic.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's not stop.
Thank you all. I know there are a number of you who've been with us all the way, so I know you'll join me tonight, not just thanking Michelle, but to Alex and to Dara and Yael and Brent. And Eric.
Eric, everybody.
We will not be meeting next Tuesday night. Next Wednesday night is Purim. But for those of you who are looking for some more pre-Purim learning and preparation, I want to invite you to join us this Sunday morning after Shachrit for some learning with Tamar Biala and Yael Karanak, who are part of who lead the Torah project, which is a regendering project of the entire Torah, of looking how we look at the Torah differently if all of the characters were regendered. And so we'll be looking at Megillat Mordechai, the Scroll of Mordechai, this
That
this
could be
this Sunday
interesting.
at 10:30 a.m. right after Shachrit. You can register on the BJ website, and if not there, hope to see many of you either in person or virtually over the course of Purim next week.
And thank you to Rolly, Marcelo, and Felicia. That's the last thing I want to say for really, for planting all these seeds, you know, all of it. I feel so grateful. And, you know, and to Marshall T. Meyer's family and all the people who made that fellowship possible, I really just have to say a huge thank you. It's been a huge, you should just know that having started my rabbin at B'nai Jeshurun has been a bracha that I'm grateful for everyone.
As are we.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye, good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, David.
Bye.